Dan Giordano. Dan, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready, Carl.
You're ready.
All
Now,
right. And I
Dan's
also,
no
yeah, I also,
stranger to pitching deals and closing deals. So I'm looking forward to this.
yeah. And I also have Cecilia and Jessica that have been working on this with me, so I may bring them in for some of their insights at some point
Oh,
here.
perfect.
Yeah.
A team deal. This is
Yeah.
one of the things, right, in Protege that makes me the most proud, right? A lot of you guys are partnering with each other, and a lot of you guys are sharing with each other. And that's, for me, what I always dreamed about when I built this community. This is what it's all about, which is great. So, whenever you're ready, Dan, I've enabled screen share.
Okay.
Let's get the model
Yeah.
up and pictures your deal.
So this is a sublimation print-on-demand company here
Okay.
in Florida, right? And my initial interest was in this because of the sports-related store that I have. I figured I might be able to do some print-on-demand products that cross-promote. So when I started looking into this, basically the company's been around for quite a while, right? Just probably almost 30 years. The father and son basically are the owners. The main reason for selling is because they're not getting along, right? The dad has a tremendous amount of commercial real estate holdings. Son wants to go do real estate stuff on his own and get out from underneath the father, and he's kind of stuck in this business. He's not really running the day to day. He does minimal things, mainly ordering. He has a GM in place that's running the day to day. And the the other thing it does have is, and we'll get into the strengths and weaknesses here, but thing it does have is it has 4 or 5 e-commerce assets that are not being promoted. There's no marketing going on, no paid advertising. Mainly how they leverage and get clients is they have their strategic partnerships with companies like Shopify and those types of platforms where their apps run through those platforms to print on demand for the products that they offer. And one of the unique things about them is that it's cut and sew. So literally they manufacture the product right there. They have seamstresses in-house to actually make the product right there as it's printed out. And through a sublimation process. So pretty much anything you could imagine that wanted to be printed on fabric can be done there. Let's see. The biggest strengths is obviously the business tenure and the senior staff. Staff's been with them for years. The guy who runs it actually is an attorney from Venezuela, the GM, with extensive background in doing what they do there. But he's also just totally committed to growing the business and running the day to day. And customer concentration. This is something I'm trying to clarify right now because I initially read it wrong. I thought that as of yesterday, one of their clients accounted for probably about 60% of their revenue, which obviously is not a good thing, right? But that's been I've been going back and forth with the broker today on this to find out later today. He's going to clarify because what he's saying is that's not accurate because they actually print directly or they actually ship directly to the clients. It's just these platforms are using them to fulfill on different product lines. So I have to get clarity on that. But biggest growth opportunity is obviously e-commerce. Obviously, the print-on-demand market is not going away, and the segmented brand marketing for the different platforms that they have, or the different e-commerce assets they have no salespeople marketing, or marketing going on in just one vertical alone is like sports jerseys. That's for local teams that are like your kids sports leagues and things like that. There's nobody reaching out to print on demand, for those types of businesses. They've just been dealing with, existing clients that they've had for years, but no aggressive growth strategy in place. Let's see. So if we look at the financials, right, basically this past year 2022, they took a little dip that it was explained to me based on there was a few products that they were outbid on from a competitor. And they wound up taking a little dip on the actual revenue last year, but that seems to be back on track here in Q1. And the ask price on this right now is 1.5, and then there's about $650,000-$700,000 in inventory. That's over and above that. And the inventory. That's what another thing I was trying to figure out is it's raw fabric because everything's being print on demand, so it's not like individual
Finished goods.
t-shirt. Yeah, so So that's that. And I'm basically the numbers that we've run over and over again here, it still come back to me that it's not, you know, the valuation, it seems a little steep for what it is, right? And you know, I'm pegging it somewhere around between 700 to 850,000 would be what my guesstimate is. There is about $600,000 in equipment. You know, equipment's about 5 years old, and apparently has you know, a 15 to 20-year shelf life, but I'm sure that technology changes out fairly quick. So
Yeah, and is the asking
let's see.
price $1.5 million plus the inventory, and they're going to take most of that cash out at close, or can we use?
Yes.
Okay. So what's really interesting about this deal, like you can tell this has been a very, very profitable business over the years because they've got almost $1.3 million of cash already in this business. So I think we can do a deal where we include the cash and then we use it as a big part of the closing payment. One of the things that's a bit kooky on this deal is the margins. So if you go back 2 years, they did almost 2 million in revenue and made $950,000 in profit, and then they've gone down a little bit last year and then a little bit more this year, and they've lost 3/4 of their operating profit. So their EBITDA margins have gone from 48% 2 years ago to 14% this year. Did they explain why that was? Is it COVID related?
Yeah, I mean, definitely part of it's COVID related with the cost of goods, the freight. You know, he told me the freight on one container, you know, went up, you know, ridiculously. Like, you know, I think he was paying like $2,000 to $3,000 for one container cost to get it here, and it went up to as high as 20,000 at one point. You know, and so obviously that ate into, you know, profits.
Okay, and because the seller psychology scores are not that high,
Right.
they're kind of average. What do you think their appetite would be? So let's say you offered them, you know, 2.5 million for this business, all in, including the cash,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you gave them half of it down, which is the bulk of the surplus cash in the business, and then you did a seller note over, say, 5 years or more for the rest. What do you think their appetite would be for that? Because that's a deal I would do right now. If that was the deal, I would take that deal very, very quickly. I think one of your challenges is if you go to the SBA on this deal, I think they're going to have some issues about the decline in margins, just as a
Right.
thought.
Yeah, I've already had the conversation with them, right? And they said it's a no-go, right? They wouldn't do
Okay.
it. Now
Okay.
he's reaching the brokers. I already let the broker know that, and he's reaching out to see what's changed. And I, you know, again, it's the typical broker overinflating stuff and, you know, making it more pie in the sky. They, you know, he would like an all cash deal, which, you know, I don't, you know, think
Every broker would.
yeah. Yeah. He's had three. Yeah. He's had three offers on it already. Two offers, you know, of course, were declined because of, you know, they told me it was because of the, they didn't have industry experience. And the second one just didn't qualify. I think it's now that I've dug in deeper, it's more the SBA just isn't going to do the deal.
No.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Have you thought about getting private financing and just going at them at a lower price point? I mean, when people in disputes want to get out of businesses, there's typically blood in the water because they have to sell that business. There's nothing more miserable than running a business where you hate your partners or you're in a dispute.
Right.
So I think that you could probably squeeze them a little bit on the price. And I mean, the broker ultimately wants to get paid, and
Sure.
the broker wants to get paid. And with how the market is right now, if he has somebody who has legitimate financing and interest in the deal, I think he'll come down a little bit back towards you.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I'm physically going on location tomorrow to take a tour of the facility.
Nice.
And meet with the actual owner in person. So just to build some more rapport and just really feel them out. Right.
Great. Kyle, any other comments before I move around the group?
No, I think it's generally more interesting. I think I would work them down on price a little bit. Maybe I've just been on the buy side too long that all I think about is how to work people down on price. I would bang them really hard on the inventory and just honestly, I'd tell them, hey, look, I'm going to have to replace all the inventory. So that value to me is almost written down. I know it's 5 years old, but you can really work people on inventory.
Yeah, the inventory was. Yeah, the inventory wasn't 5 years old. The inventory is new. It's just the equipment, right?
The equipment, that's what, yeah, the equipment I would work them down on. So, I mean,
Right.
I would ultimately, one of the ways I would work them down is I'd say, I'm gonna write down the equipment to zero. It's 5 years old. I need to get all new equipment and I'm gonna need to finance that equipment. So you want me to buy the business? I would use that as a big negotiating point. Like I said, otherwise I think the business is good. The declining margins aren't great, but a lot of businesses have declining margins right now because costs have been up so dramatically because of inflation. Paying debt service 11% is a lot, but I mean, that's just where we are right now because prime rate's 8%. So I'd like to see you get a little cheaper debt. I think it would help you with the service, obviously. But
Right.
those would be my, general thought. I know private money debt is going to be like 12 plus right now. I looked at a deal last week and it was 12 and a half and they were getting it. So.
Right. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Jeremy B, what do you think?
Yeah, I think any deal that you do, I would definitely want an earn out component to this somehow, because of the declining margins, the potential customer concentration issue. I know you said you're looking into that more, but also, they explain that the decrease in revenues is because they lost out on some bigger contracts. My worry with that is they're competing on price. So when you're competing on price and your prices are going up, that's not a good combination there. So it would have to have some sort of earn out component for me to do this.
Cool. Thanks, Jeremy. Sarkis?
Yeah, a lot of things have already been said. I mean, my thing for this would be, the price that you pay for a business. I think if you get a reasonable price that's fairly valued, I think you could make a good go of it. There are some challenges that you have to look at, but apart from that's already been mentioned. But if you're able to get a decent price on this, then you could make a go of it, especially because it's in your lane. It's the kind of things that you do, and it fits in with what you already have. So I think it could be a good addition to your portfolio if you can get the right price for it.
Cool. What kind of cross-selling opportunities have you got, Dan, with your existing business if you bought this?
One would be to be able to get the sports licensing tied in with it, so we could actually print professional and college level sports products, unique products that are unique to us that we can create in-house.
Nice. Okay, so there is some upside there for sure. And then location-wise, how close is it to your is your existing business online?
Existing businesses online. That this would be it's probably about an hour to an hour and a half from me.
Okay, it's down in Miami, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty. Wayne Tico, what do you think?
Yeah, I think for Dan specifically, it's definitely got legs. Just for what he's just said there, the cross-selling opportunities, which create actually new unique products. But I think for someone coming at this as a standalone purchase, their first purchase maybe, this one for me would just go in it's going to be too hard to finance unless you come up with some amazing deal with the seller. But the scores, the psychology scores are barely over 50%. So for me, it's one that I'd keep working on in the background, but I wouldn't be paying a huge amount of time to this. It just could be very difficult to get any kind of financing on.
So too hard bucket. Okay, hearing that. Cecilia, what do you think?
I think it's something we'll continue to pursue. We're working on this. We'll continue to pursue. He's motivated to leave. In fact, he was really frustrated on the call why it hasn't sold so far, because he really wants to get out and go do real estate. And I'm crossing my fingers on Dan being there. I think he'll work on his psychology and get something reasonable.
Okay, perfect. Stephen Holland, what do you think, buddy? You've done some deals. Would you do this deal?
Yeah, I actually like this deal.
I thought you would. That's why I called on you.
Yeah, I like this deal. I think, well, obviously for Dan, I think it makes a lot of sense with the synergies. I think that there's more to be wiggled out of these owners. So I love that he's going down there to meet him in person. It's proximity where he's at. So knowing Dan, I think he's going to be able to build some good rapport down there. He does really well with seller meetings, and I think if he's present, you know, and tosses around some different options, I think that there's room to wiggle this. So, you know, allowing them to be more motivated than you are, I think if he just takes his time and continues to give some logical options. You know, I took a phone call halfway through that, but with the amount of cash on hand, I missed what you guys said. The asking price included the cash on hand. Were they open to doing a full sale, including the cash, and then using that cash as part of the down payment?
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far. They definitely initially, were saying they were going to pull the cash out, right? So, but that was the initial conversation. So I think that's, maybe shifting as they have not. Carl, you're like this. He actually has a non-exclusive LOI on it right now. And we asked him on the seller meeting. I was like, why would there be a non-exclusive LOI? I'm trying to really understand this. And the seller told me, he's like, I don't like the guy. He was like, just like. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right?
That's funny. Does anybody have any questions for Dan on this deal before we vote? We had some questions on the last one. Steph, did you have a general question, or was it related to the last deal?
It was related to the last deal, but the one question that I do have, Dan kind of touched on as far as licensing for college and professional sports. Have you looked into what all it entails to get those licensing agreements in place?
Yes, I already have distributor licenses through third-party distributors. So I'd be able to,
Awesome.
I'd be able to leverage some of those relationships as well. And then I already went down the path of what it would take to get them, for our own, entity as well. Obviously, it's going to take a little work, but it's just knowing the right people.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that was my only question about this. Cool.
Okay, no problem. Amanda Lacroix, what do you think? I know you've looked at kind of similar deals. You've been messaging me on some kind of e-com clothing type stuff. What do you think?
So I have to be completely honest. My 3-year-old took me away from your presentation because she couldn't find a toy.
No problem. That's okay.
So I didn't hear the whole thing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem. That's okay. Gary Waddleton, what do you think? You're on mute. Can you unmute?
Didn't work. Sorry. Yeah, I like a business with cash. I'm obviously not my lane, but the margins are concerning for me. I don't know how I would grow it, but Dan mentioned some cross-selling opportunities that I think would be exciting. So,
okay, perfect. Jason Marsh, do you like this deal?
Yeah, I like it. This is definitely not my space, so I don't have a deep understanding of all of what goes into this one. I'm more in the service space, but yeah, I mean, I like what I'm hearing based on the feedback.
Okay, cool. Last but not least, Mark Hall. Just people get Mark on. So when I was in Vegas last weekend, Mark was there, and he gave me this amazing. Can you guys see it? This amazing Dealmaker World Society like thermal mug. And do you know what's on the back? I love numbers, and numbers love me. Which I had a big latte out of this morning, Mark. So
excellent.
I was thinking about you when I was drinking my coffee. But what do you think about the deal?
I mean, I like it. I mean, it's 100% outside of my wheelhouse, so it's not something I would run after. But having met Dan in Tampa and hearing his story about his experience with online sales and marketing and stuff, I think this is something he could probably run with and just crush it over time. So for him, I think it's probably a great deal. But it's just not a space I know a lot about. But I think a lot of positive upside there, particularly with the licensing component and thing. If you can put that in place, you just probably start printing money.
Yeah, great. Well, guys, get your votes in. I've greenlit 40. For Dan on this. I really liked what a lot of the comments were, particularly what Stephen Holland said, that I think the seller psychology will change on this deal over time, especially when Dan goes and meets him. It sounds like the seller's got some deal fatigue. So deal fatigue is a very powerful weapon that we can use in negotiation. You know, Kyle mentioned some aspects of the deal he would pick at to increase that negotiation. But one of the things that really helps you on a deal is when sellers just get weary. You know, once they've had LOIs accepted, financing's not worked out, another offer's come in, they don't like the buyer. Oftentimes, you know, especially when there's an absolute boatload of surplus cash in this business, which is, you know, at least half of the total value, you know, often, you know, they can take that out at closing as part of the deal. It's often more tax efficient. I know this is an S Corp, not a C Corp, but there'll still be some tax efficiency for them on taking that money out. And then having a seller note over time as well could give them a capital lump sum plus cash flow for a number of years. So I do think it's got legs. I really, really do. And I think this is a good deal as a standalone business, but I think it's even more beneficial for Dan to combine it with what he's already got. And because of his just chops generally as a marketer, his ability to scale these things, I think, Dan, this could be a really, really awesome deal for you. So, and I think most people agree with that. Lots of mid to high green lights. Even people that this deal is not in their space, they're looking at it, you know, from a cold towel perspective. They're still giving it pretty decent scores. Jim Helms, you had some good comments in your score there. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more before we move on to deal number 3? We've got
I've reviewed this with Cecilia last night, and I didn't know Dan was involved. That makes me feel a little better. Not a knock against Cecilia, but just knowing Dan's background and within this space. Did know Jessica was involved, and I suggested to Cecilia that she have Jessica reach out to JR to review this, because I know he's been active within this space recently.
Oh yeah.
But the things I didn't like was the customer concentration. You know, one client is 70%, and then the declining revenues. I just don't take that at face value that it's due to the pandemic anymore. At some point, if this GM that's the attorney down in Venezuela who's focused on growing the business, what the hell has he been doing for the last 2.5 years since the pandemic ended? Because he hadn't been growing.
He's just running the operations as on site.
No, but I'm just saying those are questions I would want to dive deeper on and understand. Right. I just don't accept at face value it's due to the pandemic all the way through the end of 2022 when everything else has rebounded is all. Right. And I'm not trying to be tough. I gave it a green light for you, but
sure.
Cool. All righty. Well, hey, Dan, great job. Great presentation. Very thorough. Excellent seller notes. That's what a submission should look like. Model on one page. This was really great. Everything on one page, all the numbers.
Cecilia and Jessica. Without the team, it wouldn't happen. So.
Okay. Well, hey, great team effort. Again, love to see people collaborating on this stuff, which is really, really good. I'll take Joe McGuire and then we'll move on. Joe, what do you think?
No, it's a little outside of my lane, but I do think it's got a lot of potential for, if anybody can do it, it's Dan.
Yep. Cool. All right. Nice. Let's do a few more. We've got some time. Sean Bressler, what do you think?
I love it, especially with Dan.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's great. By standalone, there's some things that you can do to really. I think we're put it apart, but to get a really good deal on this, and then you could expand it greatly. So I'm even it's. You give them a share and give them some opportunity to gain more money on the back end there. I think you could really get a good annuity deal on this.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that. Ayman Jawad, do you like it?
Well, to me, it wasn't really in my lane. I haven't really met Dan, but by the accounts of what everyone else is saying, I think he's probably the perfect guy to take it to the next level, really. But not a deal for me.
Okay, no worries. Well, hey, Dan, pretty conclusive feedback there. It's a great fit for you. It's in your buy box. A lot of synergies. Seller psychology is probably going to change. Boatloads of cash in the business. It's got a lot of the hallmarks of the perfect deal. So go have the meeting, build the rapport, reach out to us if you need any help. So great job.